Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. We're back for another session of the 2020 Bootcamp. Last time, what we did was we started with the basics of React. We built out some basic components, looked at how the different types of code syntaxes we can use to create functions. We looked at how to pass values into the functions using properties. We also looked at the destructuring. Uh, so all of that can be found in the previous video. Today we're going to be looking at state in React.
Okay, now what we are going to do is who is going to start off? Adil?
Zishan is going to start off.
Okay, Zishan will start off.
Let
Zishan,
me share.
go
Let
back
me
to
first
your.
share my screen.
Let's share your screen and let's look at the tutorial.
Yes. Here it is.
Now go to the point where we finished up last time. Where we had given the assignment. This tutorial had given the assignment, and we are going to
We
have
completed till
just
this
before
point.
state. Yes.
Yes.
Now, first of all, let's discuss what is state. Because people who are just starting off programming, they have no idea what state is. Ishan, what do you think state is?
Basically, whenever you are working in your application, client-side application, you operate on some properties or values. You need to display some values in UI, and whenever you perform an action to by clicking of a button, by inputting value in the text box, it updates some data in your JavaScript. You need to maintain that information across the component, or whenever you switch between components, whether you are switching pages or sometime. So you need to maintain a information during the component life cycle, so it does not get lost. If, for example, you have updated a value to 45, so user age is 45, you receive information from the server, you receive 45, and you update that value to 50 or 55, 52, then it needs to be carry on, so that whenever you look for the values again, it gives you the updated value instead of giving you the old value. So you need to maintain state across the component, across the page transition, so that you can use those values.
So, are you telling me that if a girl refuses your proposal, your state will change?
Yeah. For a single one.
Then you will think about proposing to some other girl.
Yeah. So I need to maintain an array so that I know that how many indexes are already full.
Okay. So now, what you are talking about, Adil, could you elaborate? What is state?
So what we're trying to do with state is in our application, we have different, you can think of it as like a different scenario, how your application exists and how the data in it, what kind of state it's in. So when I say state, it's like an image, you can say, or like you can have different situations how an application looks. So in our tutorial, it's talking about like a light switch. So if it's like that, it could be in two different states. It could be in the off or on state. So it behaves differently. So you can have similar states in different application based on what the functionalities are. So if you have like if the application is not a light, if it's like an air conditioner, then you'll have multiple different states. I guess each state you can have different settings to the temperature even would be a different state.
Now, Zishan, the problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Another example can be when we have an authenticated website, for example, user logged in with user ID and password. So what we do is we send a request to the server and we receive authenticated information to the client, and then we need to carry that information so that whenever user refreshes the page or whenever user moved across the component on a page, so we have that state that user is logged in. We don't need to ask user to log in again and again across the different pages. So we need to maintain that information also in a state so that we can carry out those information.
But Zishan, the problem is
Hmm.
we have started using the new, not the new way, actually. React components are right now, most of us have moved over to functions and
Yeah.
not classes as it
Hmm.
used to be, not
Hmm.
objects.
Hmm.
Now, but the problem is in a function, when you start off, it forgets the state after the end of the function.
Yes.
Nothing is left in the function. So,
Yes.
how are we going to store state?
First, we need to understand that in React, from initially, not now, but previously, we already had component in a two form: a class component, which is stateful component, and a functional component, which is a stateless component. So, whenever you have a smaller component which does not depend on any state, it's just an static information that you need to display, and whenever you display that function, it just displayed information included in that function. So that was the concept of stateless functions. And to maintain the state, you had class component still exists, and they are not going away anywhere. But what was happening is, when you are started to implement an application and you consider some component, that that component will remain stateless, and you implement a functionality, you do a lot of work, and during the development you just realize that you need to maintain a single state in that stateless function. You don't need everything, you don't need life cycle, you don't need all those things, but you need a single state to maintain in the function. So what you need, you previously what you had to do is you had to convert that stateless component into the stateful component. So a complete change would require to make convert into from the function to the class. So there are a lot of things that needs to be done to convert a stateless function into stateful. That's why what React did is React introduced a special functionality called hooks, React hooks. And React hooks helps stateless functions to maintain states and do a lot of things. So React introduces hooks which allows you to maintain a state.
Okay. Now, let's look into the code.
Hmm.
Let's scroll down.
Yes.
Now, they have created a room. In the room, what they are trying to do is either the lights are on or the lights are off.
Hmm.
And they just, of course, show it by typing it if the room is lit or room is dark.
Yes.
Now, what is this react.useState? They started off the function by saying react.useState is equal to true. They pass true
Basically,
inside.
uh, this use state is a hook. As you can see, this is a function room curly bracket start curly bracket close, and whenever, as you have mentioned previously, that whenever this function ends, everything lost. You cannot consider the variables used in this function contains the value across the recall of the function. So what React did is React introduced a function, a hook called use state, and it's in a special syntax. If you can see, not a syntax, but a function. What you are trying to do is uh, forget the previously. You need to maintain a true or false property, or you need to maintain a number property, or you want to maintain an object. So whatever type of object or property you need to maintain, what you will do is you will call react.useState and provide, for example, at this moment we want to maintain boolean property, so we are sending initial state as true. What use state do is it returns you an array. I'll when we'll go to the code, I'll explain the usage of array. But at this moment, what this code is doing, last in last class we have discussed the restructuring of an object. This is this square bracket is a destructuring of an array. What it's doing is whenever you call this function, it returns an array with the two index, explicitly with two index. On the first index it has a value, on the second index it has function to update that value. So you can create a variable as light. At this moment we have named it as lit. You can name it anything. It's set light because on the second index you have a function. So is light will be used as a property, as a state, and you can use this value in your function, in your HTML, to display. And set light will be used to update that value. So use state returns you an array. First index is a property, second index is a function which update that value.
Okay. Now, nothing is going to change in the our component. We have set the use state, but we have not used it. How do we use it?
Yeah, at this moment it's not using it.
Go down and let's see how they are using it.
So now this is what I was talking about, that react.useState returns an array. So you hold an array and you can access that array individually, state.0 and state.1. Instead of using this, exactly it is similar to this. It's an old style of accessing an array. But with the destructuring, you can use that array as we have seen above. So react.useState returns an array, and as I said, it gives you the two index. On zero index, you can access the value, and on index one, you have function. So this is how you access array normally. Okay, so
The first thing is you have to import state.
yeah, basically what it's saying is whenever you import React, use the state functions available in React. So in last time we did is react.useState, but you can directly import useState, so you don't need to call every time react.useState, react.useState. You just call the useState. So
Yeah,
you
that's
import useState, and you will have this.
it is much prettier and shorter to write.
Yes, because you will be using it multiple times, so it will be better. Okay. Now here it is. This is using is lit property, and it's an ternary operator. So if it's true, it will display lit. If it's false, it will display dark.
Let's write down this code in your previous repository
Should I use the old one or
as you
create a
wish.
new?
As you wish.
Uh, okay, so let me.
Now we have created an app by using
Yeah.
create React app.
Yes. Setting up the dependency.
In the meanwhile, let's create a repository also.
On GitHub? Sure.
Also give access to the Adil of this repository.
Sure.
Thank you.
Hopefully you cannot see the password.
Actually, we see it, but we are not going to use it.
Adil, what was that? Innovate Adil or?
Other innovation lab. There you go.
Okay, you have the access now.
Thanks.
It seems to be stuck or something. No?
No, it's working. Okay, so I have the code. Let me open it with the code studio. Okay, so as we have discussed the structure previously, so I'm not going to discuss this again. We have the app, and inside app, what I'm going to do is I'll remove all those elements. We'll just keep them over here. And I'll create another component with the name room, just like so that we have the same structure in.
First, you have to import it in the app.
Yes, I'll import in the app.js. This is the room. I'll say this is room.
I come from the Java background.
Okay.
Whenever anybody doesn't put a semicolon in end of the line, I get
Sorry?
jumpy. My first programming language was Java. So therefore, anybody who doesn't put a semicolon in at the end of the line, I get jumpy.
Sorry, I just missed your initial statement. What you were saying?
But I'm saying in the room state, when you're importing, you didn't put a semicolon at the end of the line.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Actually, in JavaScript doesn't matter, but it's not required. But I'm coming from Java.
Yeah, and I guess in if you run JavaScript lint, so it will also give you these errors. Yarn start. Okay, so starting. Okay, so here we have it. This is room component. Now let's move to this room component and
First thing, Dishan, why did you put go to the app thing, app.js?
why did I?
Why did you put a div before the room component?
Just to maintain, generally what happened is you are using component. If I want to add one more component in the app, so I at the root level I will need a single component, then I can add multiple components. At this moment it is not required, but during the development I follow the practice so that I keep a div at the top level, so that if I require to add multiple elements, so I'll add directly, so I just don't need to add it later on.
So
So I
therefore, even
follow the
if you
practice generally.
follow this practice, even if you remove div, it will still work at this stage.
Yeah, it will work. There's no problem.
Okay, okay. Now let's go to the room.
Real again, and what it does is it is basically has this syntax.
Okay. Let's
Uh,
first go ahead.
yes, yes, please.
I was saying let's first import use state inside
Okay,
our React.
use state. And then we use over here, we can say let me just intend it properly. I hope this is visible.
Vishan, the problem is,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
as I'm coming from Java,
Mm-hmm.
how do you know that use state returns an array?
Basically, it has a specification. So here we can verify the specification, the documentation of the React provides us that it returns an array.
So
So you can verify.
how did you open the specification?
I just I just press the control button and click. So it just it does is it show you the specification. Uh, so when I click it, it's open the TypeScript file. So the benefit of TypeScript is it has types, so you can view that and you can understand it. Let's just see. It shows you array s comma dispatch, so you can understand that it's returning an array. So for that, you need to understand the TypeScript also. If you know how TypeScript works, what the syntax of TypeScript is, so that you can understand that if it is returning array or something else.
Okay, what's because the main problem people face is debugging.
Mm-hmm.
So let's print this on console that what is printing by JSON John string using JSON John stringify, whatever it is returning. Let's say let's return constant A.
You're talking about the properties or the function?
No. What I'm saying is let's return as console what do you call constant state is equal to set state.
Okay.
First state is equal to set use state. Then
Uh-huh.
let's print it out.
Okay. So we can print it over at the two
No,
places.
no,
Let me.
just on the console, not here.
Okay. Okay, I can print it in the console.
Now let's see, run the application and see what happens. What I'm trying to show to students is that when you
Should not be an error. Why? Okay. So here we can see true and a function.
okay, now because there can be multiple debug statements, why don't you add some thing that what it is printing?
Okay. Here it is.
And therefore, now everybody can be able to see what the thing is returning. It's an array.
It's an array. It has two values: a boolean property, a boolean value, and a function. It shows us as a round bracket, and here this function has all the details of this function.
Just so that it helps you debug different things that are coming at you, and just to see what the problem is when you run into problems, which you will in the future.
You will definitely will run into the problem.
Now let's go back to the code.
Mm-hmm.
So we can comment out the.
What we can do is we can do is let equals to state 0. So it will give you the 0 index. This is how we normally access the array. If you are not using destructuring syntax.
Before ECMAScript 6,
yes.
the latest JavaScript, we used to do this.
But now what we can do is we can move it. So by looking at this code, we know that first index is returning a value. So we'll place this value over here in the variable islet, and the second index is returning a function. So we can name that function and whatever we want, and then we can use it as here.
Please comment out the log statement also.
Yes. Okay. We have running code again. Now what we can do is we can display this value over here. This is not showing the true Boolean property. Somehow it is not showing the boolean true. It should be if I put the number over here. So it's showing the number, but it's not showing the. I don't know why at this moment, but what I can do is I can stringify it.
Now you're trying to debug. What the hell is going
Yes.
on?
Uh, so it shows with JSON.stringify, but it is not showing directly. So it should not be like this. We are using this property here, but it should display true or false also, but at this moment it is not. So what we can do is we can use as it is being used in the article, that we provide a, if it's true, we'll show lit, if it's false, we'll show dark. Yes. Now trueness. And what if I'll make it initial state if false, it will show dark.
Perfect, perfect. Let's move forward. Let's now try to make it a dynamic thing. We want to put a button there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Okay.
we want to add a button.
Yes, so it's simple Java, simple HTML. You just and over here you need to provide what you say on click information. So whenever user click on this button, it execute a function, and then that function updates your information somehow. So what I'll do is on click. Now instead of
This is an event.
creating function over here, yes, you were saying something.
It's an event. You are basically attaching your code to the event.
Yes, I'm typing event, and in event you need to pass a function. So to make it clear for the students, what I'm doing, I'll be doing is I'm writing function separately. Will create arrow function later, so that the students can understand over. So, button click. At this moment, I'm just showing the button click, and then I'll pass this function in on click. I'm passing it. I'm not calling it. I have not provided the round bracket. I have just provided the function name. In console, we'll see. So as many times I'll be clicking over here, it will click. Okay. So and then what I'll do is I'll update the state. I'll toggle it. So if it's true, it should be converted to false. If it's false, it should be converted to the true. So I'll call set let, and I need
Why
to
are you doing
convert
this?
it. If it
Vishan,
yes,
why are you doing this? Just say is lit is equal to not is lit.
Okay,
First,
so the problem is,
write down
yes,
what I'm trying to say so that
yeah,
everybody understands. This is a boolean. So therefore, if I say islet is equal to not islet, therefore it should work. If it's true, it will make it false. It is false, it will make it true.
assignment to constant variable. First of all, what we did is we created constant. So let me change it to let, so that it should
Uh,
not be the issue for the constant, because it's not because of the constant. It's not updating.
you're clicking the button, but then nothing is happening.
Yes, it is. It's not updating it.
Why is not updating? Because we are changing the variable, but it's not updating.
The problem is it's in a simple variable. React doesn't know that it's being updated. We need to update it in a way that React can handle it and React can update your component. So it's just like a, I have a variable, let age equals to 56, and if I say over here, I'm just trying to show that what it will display like in normal variable, it's age. So it's an age 45, and if I try to update that age variable equals to 67. Variable is being updated, but it's not actually updating the UI. Because in case of React, this is why these UI libraries are important, and these UI library, this is where they help us. Because previously, what we need to do, what we had to do is we need to pick the value, and we need to update the UI by ourselves by picking up the element uh, from with the ID, and we need to update their HTML ourselves. React, Angular, and these type of libraries, what they do is they maintain the component, and whatever state we are providing them, what React do is whenever we update with the setLight function, React re-render our component. So whatever value we updated should re-render it, and it update the value. So in case of just updating this variable, it's like a simple variable we have, just like I have this age variable. So it's in a simple variable. If I try to show you the old style of updating it, that will become a complicated. But what I can do is I can go to the, I'll call get document dot element ID and then update all the values manually. I can do that. But this is where code gets complicated, and this is where UI library helps us to update these components behind the scene directly with the library, instead of we do all the cluttered code.
So therefore, the point is that just by updating the variable, the React component does not know the variable has changed. Therefore, it
Yes.
keeps on showing the older variable. In order to basically update the variable, you have to tell React somehow. And how to do that?
Yes. So to tell the React, let's say I'll comment it out. I'll say, so the setLit function is provided by useState function. So this function has the implementation, which we don't know what in that function is, but it's somehow informing the React that the state of this component has been updated, and you need to re-render that component. So React will do in the background. React will re-render that component. React will create the DOM again and display the component individually, that particular component again.
Okay, okay. So therefore, why don't you comment out also the age 45 or remove it? Let's see what happens because
I,
it might
let me
confuse some
just remove.
shows.
Okay, just okay. So
Wow, your component is working.
yes.
Yeah. Your hook is also working.
Okay, so let me add one more state so that user can see that we can use multiple state and then we can move with the example.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let's say I want to use any variable at this moment, because I have previously shown the age example.
Ishan, this is not fair. Anytime you start coding, you start mentioning my age. The
So
thing is
that
all
I make you out of market.
yeah, the thing is all three of us are unmarried, and you don't want you want all the girls for yourself and don't want to share anything.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so what I did is age, set age equals use state 23. 23 is an initial value, so I'm starting an variable which is in a state, and I'm giving it an initial value 23, so I can give you any number. I can give it any number 0, 24 or something, and then I'll show this age here, just to show it's showing 24 as it is here, and in the toggle button I'm just uh, set age. I'm just incrementing it when so it will updating age every time.
Well, Adil, I don't, Dishan, I don't like it. Why don't we have a separate button for age?
We can have it. I was just trying to show it separate in the same. I can show it. Let me create another button. And let me just keep it this way. Then I have to show the arrow function also. Okay, and then I'll pass this function into the. Yeah.
Adil,
Now we will.
we are going to commit the code in a little while, and then you will go over it and explain it again to the phones.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so this button update the light, and this button increase the age.
Perfect. It's working perfect.
Should I explain the arrow function in here so
Yes,
that?
go ahead. Go ahead.
So in last class, we have discussed that we can create functions in multiple style. One of them was this style. It's a plain JavaScript style. Another one was const increase age equals to function. And then what we did is we removed this function. We place it as an arrow function. So it's not. It will work exactly same. So I just updated the style, and now this arrow function can be directly, instead of creating it separately, I can place this portion directly inside over here. You need to understand, whenever you see a function in an event, so you can view it and understand that it's an arrow function. So you can see this round bracket, arrow, curly bracket. This syntax is an arrow function, and it's mentioning over here, and we have copied over here. So first thing you need to understand that you need to create a curly bracket for your event so that you can provide a function over here. Just as we have discussed in last class, so that we can provide JavaScript. You can provide any function name over here, or you can start creating function. So to create arrow function, let me provide curly bracket, arrow, again curly bracket, and over here I can do console.log age. Sometimes I do too much intending. Now, in here, let me remove from the code. So it's working, and you can see it's saying it's an arrow function. So this is how you provide function on the fly directly as an arrow function in the event.
Let's make the second one also an arrow function.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll create more verbose over here, and I'll do this. In this case, the beauty of arrow function is if you have a single line statement and you don't need to in this case, and you don't need to return, you need to return, but you don't need to use anything. So you don't have to return anything, and you don't want to use too much curly bracket and everything. So what I did is, this is a, let me show over here first. Round bracket, instead of this curly bracket, and because it's a single line function, so this is a simple syntax of arrow function if it has a single line is expression. So you can use it this way. So that's what I have provided over here, like this.
Perfect, perfect. Let's see if it's working or not.
So it's showing error. Expected assignment. Okay. Uh, this statement is what's causing the error. So lights change in age. Yes. Now we have.
Why don't you commit the code and let Adil revise it?
Okay. Again, as we have created repository separately and code separately, so I need to init get don't have a remote, so I'll get remote, add origin, and I'll copy the URL of the repository. Git push. So my code is in repository now and available to clone. Yes, it's pushed.
Okay.
All the students and Adil can pull it, clone it.
Yeah, but only Adil can change it.
Yes.
So now you're seeing my screen.
Um,
Can you
yes.
see it? Okay. So I have. Try again. Here we go. Okay, so I have your repository. I'm going to open my terminal and I'm just going to start the application. Oh. What's wrong with it?
I think you have to say Jan start.
And that's not working either.
I see it failed with exit code.
Want
You
to
are not in. Are you in the right folder?
Yeah, in this folder, demo react state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And start.
Because you have not set Jan, because you have not installed the dependency.
Oh, yarn install.
Yarn install, right?
You don't have to just install. You just say Jan, it will do it.
In the meantime, let's look at the code here. So we have the source code folder, and here we have our main index.js file. And here you can see we're rendering the app component. So we can go check out the app.js file. And here we're seeing that the app component is just returning another component called room. And we have the room.js file. And also we're importing the component from the room file. So we can see here where it is. And we're also exporting the app back to the index. So let's look at the room.js file here. So here, while this installs, we can continue. So what are we doing, right? We're creating a function here called room. And what we've done is we wanted to define a state. So to define a state, we use the useState function. Uh, and what it does is it returns two values. The first value it returns is the variable of whatever state we're setting, and then the second value it returns is a name of a function. It returns a function which we can use to change the state. So here, what we're doing is we're using the useState, and we're setting the value initially to false. So we've set a state to false here, and we've set that value in a variable called isLit. So isLit in our when we've created it is set to false, and here we have a function that we can use to change its state. So because we're using a Boolean value, we can set it to true or false, but we have to use this this function to change the state because we want React to be able to track the changes and to respond to the changes. If we go and manually change the variable, React is not able to track that change because the mechanism built into React is through this function. So that's what we've done here. Is the first we've created state for the isLit, which is going to control our setting for that example of having a light switch being on and off. And the reason we've used true and false is because you can have two different states. It's either on or off, so it's true or false. And then we've also created a second state here for age. So here, when we created the state, the initial value was set to 24. And the variable we've saved this value in is called age. And similarly as before, we have this another function has been created, and we've saved it into this variable called setAge. So now we have two different objects where we can change state. Now what we're doing here is when we return the function room, is first we're displaying whether the room is lit or it's dark. And we're getting this by checking the value of the isLit variable. Either it's true or false. So if it's true, it's lit, and if it's false, it's dark. So this is the syntax we use to display a Boolean true or false result. So it can be either one or the other depending on whatever the state is. So right now it's false. So when I load the page, it should say dark. And the second, now we're just doing a basic HTML and doing a line break. And after this, we have the age. So we're calling the age variable. And this is going back to this state. It's going to be 24 when I start. Now what we wanted is to have some functionality where we can change these states. So if we're talking about the state of the lighting in the room, it's a true or false. So I need a mechanism that can switch the value of the isLit variable using a formula between true and false. And for the age, I can have a button that can increase the age, or I can have a button that can maybe decrease the age. So here what we've done, the first example, is we've created a button in HTML, and we've used the JavaScript onClick event. So this triggers whenever we click on this HTML button. And on the click, what we've done is we've created a basic arrow function. And the arrow function is called whenever we click on this button to call this setLit function, and we provide a value. So here we're saying not isLit. So isLit is our initial setting. So when the page loads, it will say false, which means dark. And when we call the function here on the click, what we wanted to do was on the click to reverse the setting. So if it's dark, we want it to be light, like it should operate like a light switch we can turn on and off, right? So here, when we click on the button, what we want is to change the value of the isLit variable to be the opposite of whatever it is currently. So the opposite of false is true in a Boolean value. So here what we've done is called the setLit function that React has given to us, and we've made it use the opposite value of isLit to set the new value of the isLit variable. And here we've just labeled the button. Similarly, here we have another button. What this does is, again, on the click, initially what we have console.log. So we're trying to use this for debug purposes. And what this will do is, in our browser, if we look at the console, we can see these kinds of messages to help us navigate through what's going on in the page. It helps us debug, so we can set these console logs at various different stages through our code, just to keep track of everything progressing. And then here we have this set age formula we're using. The function here was again given to us by React. So we're using the same function because we want React to track the change and to change the state. So here, what we're doing is a pre-incrementation. So we're doing the plus plus age. So whatever the current value of age is. So when we're starting, we have 24. And then whenever we click the button, what we want to happen is we're increasing the age with this arrow function. So what it will do is, when I click the button, it should switch to 25. And every time I click, it should increment by 1. And then that's the end of this function room, and we're just exporting the function back. So whenever we export it, we're importing it back to app.js here, because we're importing, and then we're using it in the app function, which is then being exported, and then back to our main index file, we're importing app again, and here we're using the app. So through that whole hierarchy, we've called the room component all the way into our main index file.
Thank you so much. Ishan, let's get back to your screen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not a very intelligent guy, so therefore I'm still stuck somewhere.
Okay.
Please share some code. I want to ask a question where I'm stuck.
Okay, just here is. Can you see my screen?
Yes, now we can.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, we can see you. Now, I don't understand. Go to the arrow functions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. SetLit is a function.
Okay.
Why do we need to have a function within a function? Like, why don't we just call directly on click, say setLit?
Basically, it's a difference between you are calling a function or you are passing on a function. On click is an event which occur later on whenever user clicks on the button. If I'll do like this, that means whenever I am putting that setlet over here, at the moment when this button is being initialized, I'm calling this function. I'm not passing this function. I'm calling this function setlet, and it will change the value. So it will not being called on clicking a button. It is being called whenever I'm passing this function. So on click requires a function. So whenever event occurs, or whenever on click event occurs, it calls a function. So it do whatever you want to do it. So setlet is need to be called whenever we click on the button. That's why we need to put a function, and then we inside that function we call it. So let me just do this way. just to show you. So actually, this is an arrow function, and this is curly bracket of a function. So we are actually passing a function to onClick, and that function, inside that function, there is a call of setlet.
Therefore, what you are doing is you don't want to call the function. You want JavaScript to call the function on click. And if we do not put a function within a function, what will happen is that the function itself will be called immediately, and then basically it will change the value. It will change the value from the very start, and nothing will happen on click.
Yeah, it will not do anything. Should I show it?
Yes, go ahead.
So just let me and I have stopped the application.
So when this starts, the light will be lit and the value of the age would be 25, right?
We are not. We have just changed the first one.
Okay.
So the button increase age will stay the same.
Yeah. Okay. So it should be light is lit and then age is 24.
Too many re-renders. Prevent infinite loop. I guess React is holding it back itself.
Because what is happening is that it's continuously calling itself whenever re-rendering it. Therefore, just to in the new React, they have put a limit there. In the latest update of React, they are catching this and not allowing it to happen.
Yes, please.
Yes, go ahead.
I was saying that because it's update the setlet, so it calls the render function again. So it again calls the setlet, so it keeps calling it again and again. That's why we cannot do this without the function. Okay. We are back on.
Okay, let's just finish off. What we are trying to do is complete these tutorials. This tutorial in the next class, on Saturday's class at 10 p.m. But we want to add one more thing, that is the change the color through CSS. Dishan, why you want to go ahead and do it?
Sure. So what I'll do is I'll add a new CSS file for the room CSS, room.css, and what we need to do is in room.js we need to import that CSS file. In this CSS file, what I'll do is first I'll create class room. And what it will do is it will give the height. Okay, so min height.
Why are you doing this?
Okay, so okay, it's in the height. Basically, what we need to do is we need to change the background, but We need to increase the height so that our div should cover the whole page. So we need to increase the height of the page.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it will display a single component, so we can do it without uh, background color is white and font color will be black. And for the dark, like, black color will be white. Okay. So we have three classes: room, lit, and dark. In our room.js, we'll keep this div name. We'll use the class name here, and we'll have the initially we'll have the room class. But the room class is just increasing the height. What we need to do is we need to implement it
Vishant, I don't
this way.
understand something. In CSS, we used to have just class. Why are we using class name?
Basically, it's conflicting with the CSS. This div actually it's not an HTML component. It's an JSX, as we have discussed previously. So the class name is used for the CSS. Here it's conflicting. So what it is going to do is it will convert into the class property when it will convert it into the HTML component.
Okay. Could you repeat it again?
Basically, this div is not an HTML component. It's not an HTML. It's actually JSX. React will convert this into actual HTML. So the class name will be converted into the class property later on when React will convert into the HTML property. Here we are using the class name.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to provide as if we understand we can have two classes, room and dark. Just I'm just showing it initially so that we can see. So at this moment, background is black and foreground is white because I did the room and I need to change one more thing. So I can do red village. Okay. So the whole background is become dark and black and the font is white. Now at this moment, I'm not doing any logic operation. I have just placed the UI with the CSS, a class room and the class dark. So these two classes are being applied initially and it will stay the same. What we need to do is we need to change the class whenever button is clicked. So on the click, we change the lit value from the light to dark and dark to light. So we need to let's say when I click the toggle light, so it's lit, so it should become background should become white. So what we need to do is we need to switch the CSS classes. To switch the classes, what we can do is we have two options. First one is uh, boom. I just forget the syntax. Dollar is working. There is another syntax. It's called template string. Previously, what we need to do is let me show old syntax and then I'll show the new syntax. Room concatenate with so it's working. Whenever the property is true or light, it shows the different CSS. So what is happening is, what we are doing is, if the let property is true, then place the class name lit. If let property is false, then place the class name dart. Now this concatenation and this ternary operator are mixing up. So what we have a new style of implementing this is a template string, and here we'll do room curly bracket dollar, and we'll provide the is let question mark. Basically, this operation checks if let is true, it returns the lit. If it's false, it will return the dark.
Srishant, I think something is missing.
Yeah, there is some error.
Oh, it's working.
Okay, so it's working. Let me show you the CSS again. It does not have much of a class name room. It has an hide property, so it just covers the whole page. If you see the black screen, so it will cover the whole page. So we need to give the height 100%. And another class lit, it has a background white and color black. Another class dark, it has a background black and color is white, so that you can see the dark theme. In room.js, we import the CSS file, and in the class name property, what we can do is we can provide multiple classes with the space. It's in a normal HTML syntax that you can provide two or more classes in room space let or room space dark. So these are two classes. Now this class will remain the same, but this dark or light will need to switch based on whatever. Whenever we click set light, set lit, it's changed the value. So that's why we need to use an expression. This returns the room as an static, and if the value is light, so return lit. Value is dark, value is false, it return dark. It update the value based on this.
Srishant, I don't understand. There's curly bracket within curly brackets. Am I right? You're starting off with a
Yes.
class name, curly bracket, and
Basically, these curly bracket are for the template string. Let me show one separately. Let hello equals to hello world. You can create a string with double quotes, or you can create a string with single quotes. There is a new third style of creating a string, because with double quotes and single quotes, if you want to add some dynamic value between, so what you need to do is you need to do a concatenation, so that it concatenate easily and it shows within the value. It's not related to the React. It's in a ECMAScript 6 syntax of creating a string. So the new string, what we can do is we will hello world, and in between we need to provide this dynamic value. So we'll provide the curly bracket dollar. So it says you can provide the dynamic value over here. Is lit
Okay, now I understand.
over here. If you if you want, I can simplify this also this by creating a variable over here,
No, no, that's okay. I think.
like it is done
Uh,
in the.
why don't you just comment out these two lines, because later on it will going to confuse people.
Yes.
And commit the code, hand it over to Adil, and we are going to finish off this class.
Mhm.
Adil will revise it, and then we are going to finish off this class. Hopefully, next Saturday we are going to be done with this tutorial, and we are going to start learning material design, how material UI, how to use it in React. But it's hopeful. Nothing is written in stone.
What
It's a
is
wish.
that? Okay, so it's pushed now.
Okay, I'm fetching. So I've let's see.
Okay, so
Here we go. So I have your latest code here now. So we were in our room.js. So what we were trying to do is figure out how we can turn the light on and off and actually make it appear as if the lights are on and off. So we're doing this with CSS. So what we wanted is to have a CSS file that can go with this. So here what we've done is we've created a room.css file and we've imported it. So we've done the import here, and you can see the room.css file has been created here. So first, let's just take a look at this. We have made three different specifications here on three different classes. So first is the class for the room, and what we've done is set the height to 100% for that room component, so it takes up the whole page. Then we have created the CSS rule for lit. Any object with the class lit will be set to have a background color of white, and the text would be black. So this would give the appearance as if it's there's some light has been turned on, because the background is going to be white. And then if you would turn the light off, for example, the light would turn black. So the background color for the dark class would be black, and we've just reverted it, so the text would be white so it can be visible. Coming back to the component here, what we have done is we wanted to use the class to do this, to apply the CSS. So now what we have to do is, in our div for the room component, we want to set the class. So normally in HTML, we use the class attribute to apply the CSS, only the class. Um, but because this is JSX, and I guess when they were coding um, when they were developing this, probably to avoid having class equals class, what they've done is made this into class name, so it's different. Um, so here in JSX, we use class name to specify um, which class to use. Um, and then what we've done is we want this to be um, this class to be set dynamically, and the reason for it is because when we click the toggle switch, we want the class to change, right? So what we're doing here is we're setting the class name um, to lit or dark based on whether the value of is lit is true or false. So what we've been doing with the toggle switch is the is lit variable, and we've been using that value to toggle the switch, which we've created the state for. So now what we're doing is using this as the value for the class. Um, and what it will do is whenever we toggle the light switch, it will also apply on the CSS class name. And so for example, when it starts off, it's false. And if we have um, the class set to lit and dark based on the is lit status. If it's false, we're setting it to be dark. So when the state is initially created, it's set to false. So when the page loads, it should be dark. And whenever we hit the toggle light button, it will change the value of the is lit variable to become lit because it's set to true. And the class would also be changing because the value is being set dynamically here. Um, so that's what we're doing with the class name. This way, what happens is when this renders, it passes the value for the class. It's either set to dot lit or dot dark, and that's how it can decide whether to show the appearance as the light being turned on or off.
Dishan, why don't you go ahead and give them the assignment which was given in the tutorial?
Zishan,
Yes.
can you give the assignment for
Yeah.
them, for the students?
From the tutorial.
From the tutorial. Okay. Please share my screen.
Here you go.
Okay. So in the tutorial, it says your turn. Run through this quick exercise to solidify. Add two or more button on and off. At this moment, we have a single button. To toggle it, now what we need to do is we need to have a two button, one for to on and one for the off. So either to change the state of the button with the two different button instead of just a single button. Another piece of room temperature, it's asking for the another property, another state variable. It's saying that use the state and you need to initialize initially with the 72, and then you can update that value based on temperature. Add two more button, plus and minus, and then you can increase and decrease degree. Oh, I didn't saw this assignment, and I just show them how to increase and decrease the value of age, so they can do it this easily.
Okay.
So this is, I guess, yes. So you need to add two buttons, one for on and one for off. You need to add another state to display the temperature in Celsius, and then you have a two button, one with the plus and one with the minus value. So whenever you click the plus, it will increase the value of the temperature, and if you user press the minus button, so it will decrease the temperature or decrease the value of the property.
Perfect. 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 So therefore, we are going to everybody basically when they complete the assignment, they add to the issues section of the, and they also do the CI/CD and show it on the search thing, their application, and also the GitHub link. So therefore, they add whenever they complete the assignment to your. We are going to, inshallah, complete the tutorial next week, hopefully, and then move on
Seems
to
like
other.
14 people have posted it.
Yes. I didn't get you, Sishan.
Seems like 14 people have already posted the
The assignment.
assignment. See,
People are getting stronger day by day.
yes,
Okay. See you guys next Saturday at 10 p.m. Pakistan time, and let's learn how to get data using React. Actually,
yes,
it's not using React, but how to integrate data coming from APIs in React. Thank you so
in
very
React.
much.
That's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.